Hotel brothers and sisters. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of my partners, Bruce and Terry and myself, for y'all coming out here to see Dr. Ben tonight, and for him to share a few words. I'd like to say this one thing about Dr. Ben. A lot of the way I think about things actually comes from Dr. Ben through the trips to Egypt with him and seeing the stuff myself. And by me and him going back and forth in little debates, back and forth, he has shaped a lot of my thinking and stuff like that, how I think about things and how I ask people for different, when you ask for proof for something that they're saying that you can actually point to, rather than some mystery that you can't point to. A lot of that comes from Dr. Ben, because things that I would say to him, he would ask for the proof. Then that made me had to go back and read and stuff like that. Absence of the proof, it fell by itself. You understand? So I'd like to present to y'all Dr. Ben, and I'd like y'all to give him a warm round of applause. History there than anybody in this world. I'm talking about black people. And he's been doing it for a long, long time. This brother here was the one that yelled in the wilderness for years for us to look towards Egypt and what it is that revealed, and that was an African civilization. He has written many books on the subject and dealing with that. So this brother right here is responsible for a lot of stuff, and I think we need to give him a warm round of applause for the contribution.
Speaking, because like all old people, you lose your speech somehow or the other. I'm going to do the best I can, however. Another thing that you will notice that I have lost some of my memory also. To make it easy that you can understand, I am 84 years young, so that should give you I must make an apology for my next child. You know, you have the man, you have to have the woman. And as you know, that my wife don't come behind me, don't stand behind me. She is next to me. And I must say, this year we made our 50 years and 60 months since we are married. So with that, she would have been here tonight, but she's going to the Virgin Islands tomorrow at 11 o'clock, so she's home packing. When I get home, I can get a little nap and then take her to the airport. So I ask pardon that she is not able to be here. Well, I'm supposed to discuss with you the early Egyptian beginnings, its growth, and our involvement in it, and our lack of growth or our movement forward. You have to decide which one of it, which position you are at. Today, for example, last 3 days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I was in Canada, and I came back this afternoon just at 5 o'clock to be here at this time, so that have difficulty in Canada, but I understand why. And the difficulty is similar to the difficulty here, but that was much worse up there. To speak of Egypt, and I'm going to say Tamari, I make this clear. In the Mennonite writing, there is one reference to the land we're talking about, and it's at Kemet. If you want to pronounce it, that's your own business. But all there is about the land is KMT. Nobody I know, and with all of them who say they're speaking Mennonite, they're talking nonsense. Nobody knows to speak Mennonite because it's written in constant. Anytime you see, like Kemet, you got vowels, and the ancient didn't write with vowels. It's the English put vowels for themselves to make it legible for them to speak about it. So I don't try to invent, so that you'll hear some people say, I don't speak Mennonite, or I don't know Mennonite. That's all right. I prefer not to know it than to lie about it. And most people lie about it. So when you use the word Kemet, you're a liar. Your mother's a liar. Your family's a liar. You're just saying that to say something without any justification. And that's what I said. When you have to have a historical foundation for speaking about Africa, not dreams, not talking to the gods. By the way, if you talk to the gods, you must talk to the goddess. Because the god was Ra, and the goddess was Nut. There were the two first gods of ancient Egypt. So when you need to speak about Egypt, if you're taking it from the earliest position, would be a religious position. Not religious as you say religion today, because in ancient Egypt, they did not mix the men with the women in religious ceremony. The women had their own thing, but there were times, for instance, like occasion of birth, like when Aset gave birth to Heru for Asar. That's like your Mary, Jesus, and Joseph. But they didn't play around with the virgin birth. Their virgin birth was a man having relations with the other. They saw in Abydos. That's the furthest point west. So when you go to Egypt and you're in Luxor, it takes you 3 hours by bus to go from Luxor to Abydos. That's where Asaru is allegedly buried. Here, where he was allegedly born. I say allegedly because it's belief. They themselves had a belief system. And I want you to make it clear. No man could show you where God lived, where God is, and where God been. And which God you're talking about? Unkulunkul? Ingai? I know you're quite familiar with those gods. I could talk about 30 different gods. In Africa, I'm using the word that the Greeks gave us. All right. So that any time you tell me what, you're not being religious, I ask you why. And who knows what it is to be religious? Now you said that religion is negative, so you're going to use this thing that they call it. It's amongst the religion, but you said, what do you call religion? Spiritual. Thank you very much. You see, my mind don't say what it is. When you say you're spiritual, you're lying. You just feel as religious as you want to, and you use another way to escape. Instead of saying a thing is a thing. For instance, you say you believe in a goddess, but you never call on the goddess. You always call on God. And women surprises me. You see a pregnant woman, she's giving birth to a baby. She said, oh God help me. Oh God. He done help you. Put it in there. You don't say, oh goddess. And the goddess knows your problem because the goddess also gets pregnant. And she don't get it by a virgin birth. Because Asaru had his son, Heru, with his wife, Aset, or As. You see that in the wall in Abydos. Not on brick. There were no brick yet. So when we start with housing, the first housing made by the ancient Egyptian that is still there was the step pyramid at Saqqara. Now, Saqqara was not the first place in ancient Egypt. The first place was Nefer, which you call Memphis. Memphis, Tennessee is named for Nefer. And not spelled M-E-N as most of you spell because there is no vowel. Nefer was M-N, not no other word letter in there. And Nefer was N-F-R, no E's. E is a vowel. And the Egyptian language is written in constant only. So there weren't none. The British, when they came as conquerors over that land, they put the vowels, all kind of vowels, in different words to make sounds. So when you hear people talking nonsense, that they're reading Medunacha, they're lying to themselves. They like to lie. So we can move a step further. That became the first construction, and it was built of the rocks. The ancient people cut rocks. They planned the building, and they cut the rocks to suit the shape of the building. Just for instance, if the building have a 32 degree, and that was a common angle, they would cut certain stone to fit on 32 degrees. They didn't just put it and put mortar. There was no mortar. They didn't. It was for years and years and years before mortar was made by the people of Rome. They were the first to present mortar, and they came not long after the Greeks, and so that gives you an idea. They weren't in the picture at all at the time when the Egyptians were acting. And let me make it clear. When I said the Egyptians were black, I mean black. Because they had no family that was nothing else but black. So that when you saw people in a room, you saw black people. So if you're not black, if you had a father from Asia who wasn't black, from Europe who wasn't black, and you look yellow, you look anything like that of me, you're not black. So that's why you hear black studies, this, black. You're lying. How are you going to black without kind of European and the background? Huh? We as a people cannot speak about being black. Let me explain. Just today I told someone that he cannot speak. He was speaking and saying, and he's from Jamaica, and he was saying that we all look alike. It isn't true. We have all had Europeans so much in our family, and we try as much to imitate the Europeans as much as we can. In here right now, you got more bald head than anything else. You bought more hair to add with your natural hair to look long. You're afraid and ashamed of being black. We don't want to admit it, but none of you are going to wash your hair because you can't live here. You look too black if you wash your hair. That's being men now too. Men are walking around with the same pieces of hair. Who ain't look like a faggot, look like a stranger. And I got to talk to you with honesty. It may hurt you, but that's what I intended to do. Hurt you. I don't pretend. So when we go from the step pyramid, the most important pyramid that tell us anything about Egypt was the pyramid of Unas. And that's on the opposite side of where the pyramid designed by Imhotep for the Pharaoh Zusa is. Right up the wall, you go and you look down and you see the smallest pyramid in the whole world. That pyramid has the first writings that speak about the ancient gods and goddesses, the deities. But the ancient people understand when they speak of the gods and goddesses, they spoke of gods being themselves and goddess being themselves. Because man in that time reached a height in society which is called the gods. A person rose to the rank of a god, who rose to the rank of a goddess. So that they weren't jiving when they say such a person is God. For instance, Ramesses II was a human being, but he, that Saqqara, in one of the tombs, as one of the gods. Rakti is a god there, and Ra is a god, and Rakti, and Ramesses. There are 4 gods shown, and one we know was a living person, Ramesses II. But besides this thing, we have to understand, and we must understand, because if we want to be truthful to ourselves, it's going to be difficult to take away our own personality and deal with the things as stated. And we don't have to pretend like long ago. Yes, it's in a book. And you must get the facts from a book. You can't get it from my head. I must get it from a book and tell you. If I tell you something and I can't show you in a book or refer what book you must go to, I'm a liar. And you got nothing but liars around. You could dress all you want, put on different clothes. By the way, this African clothes, this from Egypt. Because only certain styles you understand as African. Most of you take things from West Africa. You don't take things from North Africa. I don't see any design of anything away from North Africa. You may take some things from Egypt, and lately you take things from Kenya. But don't, as a rule, take nothing from the Nile Valley. That's from Ethiopia, and that is Aksum. Aksum is the proper name for Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a Greek word, meaning black-faced people. People are black-faced. Abyssinia is a disgusting term. The Arabs use that term to the people of Aksum. So that is not used, Ethiopia, Aksum. And then you have the Cushite. That comes from the Bible, the Hebraic nonsense. It was in 18th dynasty when they first speak of Abraham and Adam and Eve and all that nonsense. The Africans of Egypt were already in the 18th dynasty when the Hebrews, Haribo as they call in history, arrived there with the Hyksos. The Hyksos were a group of people like most of us here. The museum got their pictures and everything. You see the Hyksos with hair, kinky hair and whatnot. So that we have no doubt who they are. But what it is, again, I go back. We have to go to Manetho. Back as far as Manetho and before to find ancient history with respect to Egypt. There is no history book on Egypt older written man to man and before Manetho. I didn't say religious book. Any book dealing with man and women, two other men and women that's not religious, Manetho wrote the first one of those books. That time I'm speaking, there is no Greece yet. There is no Rome yet. Those people must have been living, I don't know, and don't care. But there's no history of them, any place. Athens weren't built because Sistosus herself is going to be the one that built Athens. And we must understand, I'm speaking in terms, how do I know this? Can I dream this? No. Can I just like to it because it sounds good? No. Do I know anybody could tell me any history of Egypt short of a book? No. Because I don't want to hear no damn nonsense about a person telling me what the angels say this and that said this and that's nonsense. Our history were written, our history that means anything. I'm not saying that because it was written, it has to be right. But at least we got the reference of the person who wrote the thing, and we can check it what he said. And it's better than talking about God said this and God said that. God didn't say a damn thing in his life. You said it. So when you talk about the Bible, it's written by holy men. Who make them holy? See? Who make them holy? The King James, for instance, he got an argument with the Pope. And at that time, the biblical book used to come from Switzerland to England, written in English. They weren't written in English in England. They came from Switzerland. And James then said he wanted a book of his own, not what the Pope thinks about. And they commissioned 47 men in England, Scotland, and different places like that. And they wrote different aspects of the Bible to suit James. James was satisfied with a certain amount of it by 1621. And that book we call the King James Bible. James was a murderer. He killed his 2 wives and then killed his mother for disagreeing with his action. You can read that. You don't have to listen to my word. You can read it. You need to take a book like the Moors in Spain. You need to take Manetto's work. You take various writers, H. Sylvester Williams, that's a late one. But you take those ancient books. A man from Africa wrote a very good book he wrote in the 17th century. It's something of North Africa. He was Agri from Guinea. He wrote of that period of time. So what I want to bring in, how do we get information about the past? You got books of a nature in Medu Nature. There is 9 forms of Medu Nature. Medu Nature is written in 9 different ways. And one of those forms, at least, you should make yourself familiar with the rudiments of the language so that you could use it. There is no way that you can take any book, however, and read through. That's why when people go to Egypt and looking for Melanesian, you cannot read everything in the palaces, because you start to read and find here the thing change. Then you read a little more formally, it's over there, it's changed. Because the writers purposely put things there because they were information they want you to know and information they want to keep secret. We have the greatest thing that one of the greatest things the ancients devised was the pyramid at Giza. Giza is written G-H-I-Z-A. Now they have G-E-H-I-E-Z-A or G-I-Z-A. The G-I-Z-A is the Arabs writing. And they came to Egypt in 470. And Islam started in 670. Islam started in 622 of the Christian era, which you know the difference between the Hebrew and the Christians and the Muslims, difference in calendar. We must make sure that we understand the different dates, because people, things are written to suit the writers, who for the most part was biased because they wrote strictly from their position, and they didn't take into account anything, because writers, for instance, today, most writers write about ancient Egypt and Libya, or what you call Morocco. That was the Morocco was a French name, Arab name and a French name. The fighters would take Spain in 711. They take Spain, and an African, Gibraltar was the name of the African, that they used to call him Smart John. And Gibraltar had carried into Spain much of the writings that he had learned from his mother. His mother was the one who was in charge of the country. There isn't much said about her by men, because stupid men who just hate women and can't speak right about them, ignore them, or tell willful lies about them rather than tell the truth. And that got to stop. Women, no doubt, I know this very well, different to men. I am happy about that. But that is no reason not to give them their due. Because in ancient Egypt, when Egypt was two places, northern and southern Egypt, were two different countries. Until the first dynasty, that when Nama of the south, you could call it, if you call it Nama, N-A-R-M-E-R, that's since the British get into things, you got an E. But Mena or Aha, you could write A-H-A or M-N-A or M-E. The E always, you know what the British. You got when Mena for scorpion, the animal, the fight, the people were asking for a united Egypt and encouraged the fighters until that one day these men met to decide unifying Egypt. And thus Mena and Scorpion met at Memnepha. Memnepha, you could translate it to mean the White House. It was a building, and the literary translation would be White House. They met there and fought, and Mena killed Scorpion. Now, right there, we speak about Egypt or any place as if we didn't commit wrong. We commit murder. We stole. There is a sign in every one of the palaces and everything talking about stealing. We were stealing before others come. We are. You see, people got a mythical idea that of their people. They want to steal in ancient Egypt. Who the hell did it? There were no European there, so somebody was stealing, so it had to be yours truly. We have to deal with things. Remember, the Egyptians were people like others. That's why you got a set of laws. 42 laws. Number 27, I remembered, I just said, I said, goddess Ma'at, I have not committed sodomy. And you sodomy, that means a man going with a man. And there's only one place a man could go with a man, and that's his rectum. And to justify that, you're telling me that a man is going with a man. He's going to put his penis in a man's anus, his filth. I don't know with other way to explain this by those words. I don't use dirty words. I use words that explain the thing, however. The ancient, to say that the ancient practice homosexuality and so forth, no. They were individuals who committed such acts. But when they were caught, they were punished. And it's just like today. That's why you have in the Book of the Dead, the Book of Knowing Ra, the Book of Gates, other such works. And you could see some of the writings in the tombs when you go there. And you could see goddess Nut all over the ceiling. When you go to the temple of Cleopatra, the seventh, there is a room. When you go inside the room and you get an angle next to the Holy of Holies, there is a little room that is steps of about 3 steps, and there is goddess Nut, and the baby's coming out her mouth, and one passing through her body, and it's a continuous rotation, and that's what it said. Life is a continuous thing. There's no end to it. Nobody knows of an end. So nobody could tell you when the world go to an end. Who tell you the world going to an end? And who tell you that it started? You came here and you're going to leave here and it's still here. That's all the people who talk about it knows about it. Any other thing is speculation. You got that statue. When you go further upstairs in the same building, and the top you go to the room where a clock, the first clock, when man developed the first clock to tell man time. And in that room is at the right-hand side. There are about 6 columns, open columns, and you go in there, and that was the place where they told time by shadow. Not only they did that, but they show the reflection of one person's image to the other. I'm not finished with the Maynard thing, I should go back to it. But when Maynard had killed Scorpion, they wanted to find a god for Egypt. And Maynard, being very wise, said he knew the answer to the problem. He said, Scorpion, they worship a god called Amen or Amun. You can say Amen if you want, or Amun is all right. And Mena people worship Ra, the god Ra. So they joined them, Amen Ra, Amen dash Ra. And that's how Amen Ra became the god of Egypt. And that made united Egypt. Egypt, the two Egypt became one place. When they were in that time, which was at 4200 BC, roughly, so that we would be in the is 6004. That's the year we will be, we had to go on the Egyptian time. They had 40 states. And the 40 states, they add 2 more states later, make it 42. And thus we got the 42 laws, the 42 commandments, the 42 this. And you could see that when you go to Abydos, the steps from going from the gate up to the house is 42 steps, 1 step for each law. That's the palace that have 7 Holy of Holies. And the one to the end is where in there you have the board of, demonstrated to show you, the board of Heru, the board of Horus. And from that you can see, and one of the walls is stripped. I won't say who, because I don't know who. I just know that when I was going there first, the wall had goddess fully pregnant. And now it's all gone. It's only left on one side, Ra. You see a saru with an erected penis on the one side. On the other side, you see the goddess with 2 birds hovering her vagina. And they tell you that's the story of the virgin birth, the virgin story. And that story is copied now, and everything that the ancients did is set for Mary. Only that Heru, father, committed sexual intercourse, which was endorsed by God. Assumption. And that's what I'm trying to say, that way back there, we see where the ancients attempted to speak of a story of a woman who wasn't touched by a man, but had a child for God. That's a theory, a belief, not a fact. And that is in the last scene. So within that, with that, I go to Giza. In Giza, another thing, you say that the ancient Egyptians were very wise. I think so. Because you believe in the setting sun, right? Or do you believe in the setting sun? Because you said the Egyptians rise with the rising sun, and they go to sleep with the setting sun. The sun don't set, and the sun don't rise. The sun forms a complete elliptical circle around the earth. It never go up and come down. It continues constantly with this motion and an angle. So when you say the sun rise, you're lying. And when you say the sun set, you're lying again. It doesn't move. But we say things that sound to us very good. We don't investigate it, and next, we don't want to be different than anybody else. The pyramid at Saqqara, at Giza, the Great Pyramid, and that's the biggest one in the whole world, is not square. It's 640 foot long, but 625 foot wide. It looks like a square to the eye, sure. It's 48 stories high a 10-foot per story. And then it had, on the top of it, there was a crown, which they have an iron just to show how it is. Many of you go on top and climb it in the night or so, but now it's legal. And if they catch you, well. But you notice that it's oriented to the north. When you see the holes in the pyramids, the ancient left no holes in the pyramid except for air. Now, why for air? Who needed the air? It was when they were walking. They provided that so they have to come out. The last person have to come out. And when he come out, they had to have air while he was there working. But none of the openings in the pyramids were done intentionally for people to come to visit, because the ancients had no need for people to come to visit. And the pyramids were built as a burying place for the pharaoh. There is no queen in a pyramid. It was for pharaohs only. Now, in Sudan, Tanahisi, there are 44 pyramids built from the 25th dynasty. The Ethiopian pharaohs, Bihaka and all of them. But they are completely different than the one in Egypt, because they house wise people, all intellectual, and different people of different persuasions. But those in Egypt, 8 square miles of them, 101 pyramids, they were built for our housing the pharaoh, and just that. No other reason. There's no philosophical things and no imaginary things that you hear the buzzard talking about. They tell you the dream and so on, the pharaoh. How the hell dream? What he knows about the dream? How are you going to tell me when the pharaoh dreamt 6,000 years ago? How he knows it? It's not written down, but he knows it. You see, I try to be as direct as possible and moving on. The most logical and the best pyramid that got our intrigue is the pyramid of Amenhotep III. Amenhotep III. That is done at a place called the Fayum. The Fayum is a waterway. It's a lake 22.5 miles long by 3.5 miles wide. It produces Egypt's most beautiful fruits. Agriculture there is fantastic. It got a water wheel from the time the Romans have come and captured Egypt. They built 3 water wheels that moves water from a low level and up the water to go to a higher level. And you could go there and see it, and they have a restaurant right there. And there's a place where they make basketry and so forth. They bring it right there to sell. And you could come and buy it. That gives us a chance to see ancient Egypt. And I could elaborate more, but I move forward. Moving forward, you've come up to the point of accepting what Egypt was for. Egypt, in the days of antiquity, up to the time of the coming of the Hyksos, and that would be in the 13th dynasty. Well, when they come, in the 18th dynasty, sorry, when they come to the Hyksos, who brought in the Jews, the Hebrews, or the Hebrews. The Jews only one group of the Hebrews. The 12 tribes of the Hebrews and Jews. Judah was one of the tribes. We start to think of Egypt from different perspectives. We start to talk of the tombs, the palace of Hatshepsut. That's I think that's right there. We got to remember that the symbolic thing of Hatshepsut is that she takes some, she nurses, and the cow's breast, the father of the cow, and wears the cow hat, and so everything like that. And Hatshepsut changed our concept. Also, she is said to be born of a virgin birth, not of any pharaoh. You cannot attach any pharaoh to her unless you read Manetho's book or read the writing on the wall at her temple. But her tomb, and her tomb is the only female tomb in the Valley of the King. And the Valley of the King is for those kings that lived in the last dynasty. There were three different eruptions, three different dynasties that they had. So you see, Hatshepsut claimed that she was born of a virgin birth. Yet, she had killed her, fight her own brother to take over when her father died. She fought Thutmose II and drove him off the throne. That's how she reigned. And from that, you heard all kinds of stories. That Hatshepsut was not decent because she married her own brother. There was nothing wrong with marrying your brother. That was the morality of the day. You marry your brother was okay, but you couldn't marry your father. You couldn't marry your uncle. Your uncle was the last done, or your aunt. You couldn't marry them. But your brother, your sister, you couldn't marry your brother, you could marry your brother and sister from a different wife.
That's right.
You see, you couldn't just marry your brother from the same mother you came from. No. Why? Because it's the same Holy of Holies you came from. And the Holy of Holies that holds you is your mother. You see, that's why I can't hit her. I can't see a woman being struck by a man. I can't see the man who will strike her. You know, my wife tells me some funny things. And if I should hit a woman, I could justify it. But I can't hit her. Because I hit my girls until they become young ladies. The first day my girl become a young lady, I don't spank her. And when I used to hit my children, and then used to beat my children, spank my children. It's a difference. I didn't leave no mark for them or hurt them in any such way. We must move again to a more advanced period. We move to the Nile Valley. This we find is going to be important. You hear some people say Ethiopia is the oldest country. That's nonsense. Africa is Africa. Alkebulan is Alkebulan. Nobody could tell you what's the oldest country. They tell you, they said Egypt is the oldest country because it has the most oldest artifacts. That's the only thing. Because they speak of King Ori existing in the year 5,700 odd. And Ori was the first king of Ethiopia. So you don't know what was going on in South Africa. The Mulumtapa Empire was there. Nobody knew when it started. And there you got God, Unkulunkulu. The God of South Africa is Unkulunkulu, one of the gods of South Africa. So what I try to show you is that any place in ancient Africa that you go to the past will give you all kinds of information, and information that we need. But I want to say that throughout ancient Egypt, a woman was respected. That doesn't mean that all men were good men. You had thieves then, you had murderers then, you had human beings. So that much of the destruction, much of the things that happened by ancient Africans or equivalents against their own people. They were human beings. We're not talking about angels and all this kind of thing. We're talking about human beings. So that will move me right now up the Nile. I'm going to the end of the Nile. Up, going up. The Blue Nile starts in Ethiopia. It came down from Lake Tana and around here. The Sissi Mountains. That's where the water starts, comes down in the lake, Lake Tana. The White Nile starts in Buganda, which they changed now to Uganda. And the reason it's called the White Nile, when the water drops down the falls, the whiteness of the water runs for about 50 miles. The Blue Nile is the tint of the water by the elements above. The Blue Nile and the White Nile collide, intersect, meet each other at what is now called Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, Tanahiti. There and the merger, they run about 5 miles downhill, down. Remember, Ethiopia is high. Egypt is low, very low. And the water is going around from south to north, not like here, north to south. They run until they meet the Atbara River, a river that starts in Sudan and join it. Before it meets that, it begins the cataracts. Cataracts are obstruction in the water, obstruction of stone, trees, so that the water bubbles all over the place. And that is not a cataract. So the first cataract, you're talking, number one, is in Sudan, not what we said by the land we call Nubian Aswan. No. The Greeks, when they came, misnumbered the African thing. The African had number one down Khartoum and 6 and in Aswan. Now it's number 1 begin in Aswan, going up the hill. But we accept it because European right. And as long as the European writes something, we don't examine it. It must be true. So it is still there for us to see. And subsequently, the British came and they built a dam in in 1600, the first dam crossed the river. Then they added to that in the war, 1618. That dam is now not used. Just they closed some of the gates and now some water come in since they built this new dam, the new high dam, much further up, and they make a bigger lake. They call it Lake Nasser. The Nubians call it Dam Dam, the Dam Dam. So you see, but something is important, very important. In the island, that in that water, you notice that there is a god there, Menderusi. Menderusi is in the religious books of the ancient people as the god, the brother of Osiris. That means that Osiris didn't have one brother. They told us that Osiris had one brother, Set was his brother, Set Typhon. But we find in the records that he had two brothers. The Nubian called him by that name. So we find that there much mistakes are based upon things that we have not had. And because we are willing to add things without knowing the record, we are unable, we didn't do the research. We refuse to do research. And believe me, you cannot do anything without research. I do research every day. I get up all in the morning, 4 o'clock, every morning, 4 o'clock. And I'm there sitting down on the couch, and I have a thing, and I eat when I generally eat and look at this. I got on the TV not listening to a thing, but for some reason I will put on the TV and don't pay attention because I'm doing my research. So it's a pity I can't have you to visit my library because I live in a library and the rooms are all the books. But to make you understand that when we speak about saying things in the name of the ancient Egyptians, that we say by understanding, because you can't speak really of Egypt without Ethiopia. You can't speak of Egypt and Ethiopia without Sudan. You can't speak of those three without Egypt. Because there's a one body of water that all depends on Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia, and Uganda. Depend on the body of water. And right now, Sudan is trying to build a dam. She can't build a dam without getting the okay of those other countries, because the water is shared by all of them equally. If you raise the water or lower the water, it's got to be with the permission of the country, because those people who work on that commission don't pay respect to any country. Otherwise, they have to leave immediately. In that context, we need to speak a little at least, about Ethiopia, so that we don't get carried away. It's a big question about the history of Ethiopia. And it goes back way early, but let's take 971 BC, before the Christian era. You have a king by the name of Solomon. And you have a queen of Aksum, what is the name of Makeda? Makeda. Some men went with her to meet Solomon on the basis that they were to have a conversation. But they did more than a conversation based upon the story. She got pregnant. She got pregnant and brought back the stomach with many, the first, Abna Hakim is called, the first. And the promise that when the boy got 12 going to 13, he gets a bar mitzvah, bringing him to manhood. He will return, and we are told by many people, Solomon, the great Solomon, how great could it be? One of our countries, one of our empire, she could buy him, feed him, clothe him. He didn't have a thing. He was literally hungry. As against the queen of Sheba. Not she was the queen of Aksum and the empress of Sheba. Why? What's the difference? An empress is queen of a land and queen over a king or queen in another land. So the empress of Ethiopia was over a place in Arabia called Sheba. She was not queen of Sheba, she was empress of Sheba. It was another land, not queen of Sheba. You see, and see what I mean? We speak all the times about the queen of Sheba. That's a lie. She was never a queen in Sheba. She was an empress, higher than a queen. She ruled a queen. Okay, hopefully did I make myself clear, because when I hear it tomorrow, I want to hear it the right way. Well, you go up there in a city named as the present Ethiopia used to name, and up there you will see her castle where she lived, out of stone. It's mostly broken down, but enough to know it's a castle. And what is bad with all of that, with the record of this woman, people speak of Ethiopia as a Christian nation. It is not that. Never was and never will be. You had, before Christianity, Ethiopia existed. It had kings and queens. The Hebrews were there, Queen Judith and Rabbi Radai, and King Radai, and other kings. There were 13 different kings and queens of the Hebrew religion by the Beta Israel. You call us Palasha. And Palasha is a disgraceful term. It means people without land, people funny looking people, people with no attachment. It's a negative term, it's a dirty term. And people called Palashas had to wear special clothes. They had to carry special order, not necessarily stink, but a Palasha had to always declare himself when he lost his reign. Most of them now have gone to Israel. By way they went through Sudan, and now the Israeli government picked them up, and most of them are in. And those who remain don't allow people to know that they are Hebrew, very few. and some also very noted people. The last member of Salasi's cabinet, the Minister of Finance, was a better. I know very much because that's my father's baby brother. But he didn't ever profess his religion. He never spoke about it, and everybody's surprised. His daughter's running the Ramesses Hilton, which is the biggest hotel in Ethiopia, and she don't let nobody know that she is of Hebrew background. Otherwise, she wouldn't have a job. Now she may, because you don't have the country is no longer run as a Christian nation. Since it's run as a secular nation, with the southern part, the Oromo. You used to call it Oromo by another name. That's like this place. You looking at the Oromo now. Look like this. They make up more than half of Ethiopia's population. More than half. So that gives you what it means. They have their own God, their own language. And Ethiopia, you have 7 different languages being spoken. Tigrano, Amharic, Geese, Dandake, well, 2 more. Amharic is of the Amharic people, and that wasn't, that was a language came from Geese. Its origin came from Geese. So you have to go to Ethiopia also to see the world's most outstanding objects. You see them lying down, still lying down on the ground. When they fell down or whatever happened, they remain there. Up to now, no emperor ever tried to put them back. For some reason, I can't understand why.
Pause to change
To say something to you that's a little different to my story, but it's important that I don't forget it. Many of you have wondered lately, you have heard that I gave my books to Brother Farrakhan. Yeah. And I know that you come to hear something about it. Yes? Brother Farrakhan believes in African Islam. That's what he said. Brother Malcolm and Elijah believe in an Asiatic black man. Brother Farrakhan is a Muslim. And I gave him my book, not because I'm Muslim, because I'm not a Muslim. Far from that. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Hebrew. I left that nonsense long ago. Why did I give him the book? I looked in the Caribbean. I looked throughout the alleged black universities in the United States. And it's the only one that's run by black people, owned by black people, and when I die, it will be still black. And I got to die. I asked my children, which one of you going to do my work, continue my work? The lawyer, I got a son who's a lawyer, 2 granddaughters who are lawyers. They said that they weren't interested in that. I asked my accountant, 1 girl, I got twin daughters. One is a seamstress and one is a accountant. I asked her if she's interested. They said no. I asked Colette, the one in Chicago. And she said, no, Daddy, I'm married 25 years ago. Beautiful husband, that's why I'm not going in that way. All of them. I got about 6 biological children. That means that 6 children I am the physical father for. One died, the girl, 64 years old. I got 14 adopted children. That means I adopt them legally. They are my children, they're my name. But none of them was willing to be responsible to me for owning the books and court do it. So the only person who has a school, has black people, no white, gonna run this is a man. He happened to be Muslim. So what? I don't give a damn about Islam or Christianity or Judaism or anyone. That don't matter to me. You said that he's my brother. And if he's my brother, I leave the book to my brother. I don't get a dime. It wasn't money consideration. The consideration is that black people, he has to sign, they had to sign an agreement that would remain in the hands of black people or it will be taken back. They must give it up. If they bar any black people, they must let black people of every religion, any economic system, anything, it is given to black people. That's all there is to it. And I could think, and plus, I know Parakan. I taught Parakan. Yes, when he used to play calypso music, singing. Oh yeah, he sang with Boney. He and Boney used to be in the same orchestra. I taught Malcolm when Malcolm came from Detroit as Big Red and hanging around the Braddock Hotel at 128th Street and 8th Avenue, the Braddock Hotel, with baked meal and pig meat and all those places. I had my office upstairs there. I was teaching at City College and practicing my private business in architecture upstairs there. See, I practiced three different professions. One time, you see, I couldn't get work because of my color. And the white man would tell me he never heard of a nigger. He told me, point to my face. He never heard of a nigger engineer. But trouble Caribbeans, they were black and yeah, told me to my face. And when I got a job from Brother Miller, who was a white man from Denmark, he was in the Caribbean. He said, I've been in the Caribbean. He said, I'll give you a job. He gave me a job behind a collar. And there was one white woman. He said, when you go to lunch, please don't go with her. One day I came up on the elevator with her, and a fellow thought that she and I went out to lunch, and he started to pitch a bit. I said, you cussing the wrong person because I don't use white meat. And that up. I heard that I have extended myself at a point that bring where you have specific questions, and I might not have touched it in my presentation. So at this opportunity, you're going to be able to ask me questions and I'll answer them to the best of ability. It may not be the answer you want, but it's the best I know. Thank you.
Dr. Ben,
Yes.
Matt, take the opportunity. What do you think of, what's it, the chief Egyptologist in Egypt? Well, he's a mulatto, I guess you would call him. What about all these white folks digging up our graves?
Oh, you're talking
It just
about.
upsets me to no end. These white people going, if there's somebody dead, they're going all around the world, digging up other people's graves, but I don't see them going to Europe digging up their graves.
But you see, when you become a conqueror of another man's land, the Egyptian, the Arab value for those things, they once dug them up and built houses up as a quarry. They once did various things. They don't care nothing about. This man, I forget his name, Solomon something. He doesn't care about those mummies and so forth. They have no interest to him. He is a Muslim and don't respect them. And the reason he can do it is because people like me can't figure a way to get rid of him yet. But if I had a way, I would use it. You see, Africans got to stand and watch those things because when we watch our mothers, we sing dirty songs about our mothers. We do dirty things about our sisters and don't talk about our wives. We just do them in. If you don't respect yourself, how can you respect others? So what's going on with the Arabs and Egypt? It's been since 470 that the Arabs have been in Egypt one way or the other. The Turks have been there. The many other groups been there. The Ottoman been there. All of them leave things that make Egypt as ugly as could be. But when you go, the prize of Egypt is, for instance, in Wasir. Wasir is called Karnak. With all the grandeur, you pick any building throughout Europe, anyone, or any set of one, they cannot match the size of the one at Wasset. They do not match the magnitude with the sphinxes 2.5 miles to the temple at Wasset. Wasir to Wasset, that the granddad of Luxor. How could they mind about letting people do things to these businesses? These businesses, what they represent, is a constant reminder that they are not to the height of the indigenous people. So they decide that men from outer space build these things, and that the Africans do. You see, and many of us accept that, the European accept.
Yeah.
And there is no difference than the Arab and his brother. Remember, the Caucasian claim to have come from the Caucasus Mountain. Arab claim to hold the same mountain, that they came from the same mountain. So they're saying that man and I are brothers. And we found lately, they tell us that everybody comes from the same gene pool. And the first person, they admit, is the Africans. that the African can make white people
Right.
call albino. But when the white people have albino, they got a new name. They're just white people. So, I have, you see, I have strength that, and it's not based upon any miracle, it's just my observation, that things will change, but I don't plan to wait for things to change. I want to die soon. I'll help it along. But one thing I find, that knowledge is a good asset to have. You can tell me all kind of lies, but one day, the knowledge, the things that I would say, you would say to me, today, I went to a place in Canada, and a young man and two ladies were there talking about breeds with an English accent. I know by looking at them, they weren't English, they may have been born there, but they're Caribbean parents. And the one fellow said to me, "Who are you?" I said, "A young man." He said, "You're not Joseph Ben-Jochannan, right?" I said to him, "Why did you ask me that?" He said, "Because you sound like a fellow been there with Dr. John Clark, and you all lectured in the place there about 8 years ago." I said, "I won't keep you worrying anymore. I am that person. But I just say that tomorrow things are going to change. I have no doubt. I got no doubt, like I got no doubt that Bush is going to die. He's going to die now or sometime, but he and his mother and his father and his brother going to die. One day, they got to die. Because what is responsible human being make him die like I would die. No, it might not be in time, but he's going to die. And I got strength in that he's going to die.
Dr. Ben, it's quickly a three-part question. You recently came out with a book about the myth of Exodus, and there's some
Last week.
Some scholars that maintain that the whole story about Sheba going to Solomon is not true, also a myth or something that they made up. If you could speak on that a little bit, and then also in your books you speak about an African god called Bes.
Yes.
And I was wondering where and when does that reference come from, and also Al-Qaeda.
Beth is the goddess from the south. You go to the tomb of Ramesses II. It's a symbol. You see goddess Beth, and she preceded God that tied the papyrus with the flower,
Preceded.
Preceded. He was the god of, well, God goddess, because he had penises around his neck, and then he's also a female. So he's considered a hermaphrodite goddess.
And Al-Qaeda?
Al-Qaeda was the first name. Africa came in 1688. It was given the name by the French, and from 1688, the name Al-Qaeda disappeared. But ancient documents, you will find Al-Qaeda, A-L-K-H-A-B-U-L-A-N, Al-Qaeda. B-U, next to the U is a dash, and then L-A-N.
And that's referring to the whole continent?
Yes. Well, no, not necessarily.
Okay,
because
and extended.
continent is a European idea.
Yes.
Because the continents are not really continents because the thing that divides Asia and Africa is the mountain, the Caucasus Mountain. There's no water there. Australia was a island until quite recently. Between South America and North America is a canal, a man-made canal. So that the theory that a continent is a large body of water surrounding on all four sides, the theory is gone. But nobody gonna question the European, even though they see it. Yeah, you put the map right up in their face, they will see it.
So therefore, Al-Qaeda land was the land of black people then?
Yes.
And about Sheba and Solomon?
Well,
And the temple and...
the Kebra Negats, which is the book of Kings of Ethiopia, speaks of Solomon. In that context, another writer, Radai, another writer, he speaks of that, but they didn't give any proof. They didn't give any documentary. It's just their statement, and you have to accept it or not accept it.
So it may be a fairy tale.
It may be. Just like the thing in Ethiopia, you have some priests that guards are building, supposed to
With
be
the Ark of the
with the Ark of the Covenant. What Ark of the Covenant? Yeah. Yes, sir.
First of all, Dr. Mayor, I want to say it's an honor to be here with you this evening, a great honor for me. I want to get back to the question, the point that you made earlier, which kind of goes along with the other gentleman was talking about, the first question. When he talked about why they go to all the ancient sites and be able to excavate and dig up. My question is, these particular so-called European Jews today, I wanted you to give me some form of confirmation that my understanding is that they converted to Judaism twice. They converted roughly around 135 BCE through the Romans, when the Romans had providence over Judea and Samaria. They converted because they were the Edomites who helped fight against the Hebrews in the Punic Wars, and they converted again roughly in the 7th century. My point being, originally from what I've read, they tried to do everything they can to kill off the Ethiopian Hebrews, and now within the last probably 5 years or so, they've been pretty much trying to bring them into Israel. And from my point of view, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're just using them to just somehow give validity or somehow give authenticity to them converting to Judaism. Would you be able to speak on that?
Yes. What is a Jew? And you can be on in the morning. Anybody can do that. You follow the laws. You go to a rabbi. He must turn you down 3 times. If you insist, he must give you education. And when you finish, he bamisra you if you're a man, and he bring you in if you're a woman. Anybody could be a Jew. Black, red, green, purple, white could be Jew. You don't have to do anything. And a Jew is not a race. A Jew is a religious affiliation. Anybody could be a Jew. That's why you got Rabbi Methodist Church on 124th Street and Morris Park West. Right there, you could go there. And at the synagogue, you got another synagogue in Laurelton, Rabbi Matthew, Rabbi Harris, and all his brothers. They all went to school in Israel. And all of them black like you, black as stars. And they would die for Israel. That's why I said I give up religion long ago. Because I'm dying in our country.
Dr. Ben, I think what he was referring to, though, is the fact that it's generally accepted that the original so-called Hebrews or Jews were black people.
But they lied.
Until the
But
Khazars
that's our lie.
Okay.
Because there is nothing in the Torah that says what color you're going to be. There's no color requirement in the Torah. And the Torah is the law of the thing. You gotta show me
my,
what
my,
you
my,
require
point,
color.
my point being, and I do thank you for trying to bring it out more, but my point being, and as you said earlier, that the ancient Egyptians were black people, descendants of Ham, and being...
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Back up.
It is a lot more than half.
That was me, not you, sir, not you, that was me. But correct me if I'm wrong on that. Correct me where I'm
You're
wrong.
wrong, because ham is a joke to me.
That's true. Everybody walk in.
I never use that at all. There is nothing in
That's all it is.
literature for ham don't appear. Because, look at this thing. If the Egyptians were so good, when Abraham came there, he gave them the best of land, the best of home, the best of food, and took care of them. Why did they suddenly turn wrong?
Why?
The Pharaoh's daughter found a baby on the Nile, floating down the Nile. I don't know if you know the Nile. And the baby cover, she pick him up. The Pharaoh's killing all kind of boys, children. The Pharaoh comes back home. Here is his daughter with this baby boy. He don't say to her, how you got pregnant? In my house? I don't know you're pregnant. She keeps the baby. She said, no. It's my child. And the Pharaoh don't kill her.
Anybody?
That don't say why. Something wrong. That's a good piece of hogwash. And I can't live with it. I used to say, when I was a little boy, I did say, I was brought up in a home. My mother is Hebrew, my father is Hebrew, born in Ethiopia, my mother is Hebrew, born in Puerto Rico. I had to agree with everything. But when I was about 9 years old, there was a boy named Edmund or Raymond. And we used to play a hands in the pooch game. But he was a boy, you ever heard of a saint? He was to be a saint. He wouldn't play any of the bad games, he wouldn't do anything. So he got kicked from one of the boys. And the kick ruptured his penis. And within 2 weeks he was dead. I asked my father to go to the funeral because the school was going to let out. My father told me, no, I can't go. And I said to him, and you never contradict, I begged to my father, why? My father said, he had the wrong God. I said, what God is that? He said he belongs in Christ. He's a Christian. And you can't go in a Christian church. You're my son. I couldn't argue. I cried. I leave. Well, when I came about 19, 20 years old, I stopped worshiping because that thing kept bothering me. Why Raymond got a different God? If there was a good child in the school, it was Raymond.
Yeah.
Dr. Ben, I got two short questions. First question is, we know about the pharaohs. How did the so-called average person live in ancient Egypt, the educational system, background, and stuff like that? The next question is dealing with this.
One at a time.
Okay, but I'm going to give you this. You can deal with this after a second. You can have that too.
Is that the Danish fellow married to the Ghanaian girl?
Yeah, this came out of a book called Great Chiefs of Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ghanaian is from Holland, married to a Ghanaian girl. That's what I mean.
Right.
They destroy the culture because she does that. Now, don't mean that it's right. Because in olden days, this would never happen. He will have to prove his background.
For the camera, can you show it, brother?
Right here.
Brother man.
Yeah, just,
For the camera.
I know that. He would have had to show his background.
this way, just spin around, bro.
He would have had to show his background to be made a king.
Yes.
And he's a commoner, never worked a day in his life, doing nothing. He was surprised that he was
Just the
raised
background.
to the rank of a king. And that's what happened. Here, this black woman goes to Holland and give up the royal status and take on a poor white man just because he's white. Never worked a day in his life. He was surprised because he said, I don't work. He tell what a good woman he is. And she loved him more. I saw that here, and I almost got vomit.
Can you go for a throne for that?
Yeah.
And he also asked about the day-to-day life of the average.
Oh,
right.
No, the average Egyptian live poorly. Because you had again the class system. The kings and so forth live in luxury, in luxury. And the poor people live in poverty. Well, what I mean by poverty in relation to ourselves. Sure, the Egyptians, that's what I'm saying. Not Egypt because it was good, but Egypt because of the history. With good or bad, just tell it as it is. You don't have to put anything. People know your line. Because the laws in Egypt against wrongdoing, against murder, against theft, against this, against that. There are laws. The negative confession. 42 laws give you the wrong thing they're doing. In incest, all kind of bad things.
Dr. Ben,
This lady.
what do you think of the terms, the racial terms we use to describe ourselves? Do you think they're good? And if not, what terms do you think we should use to describe ourselves racially?
I use, for the want of another word, I am an African, which you understand what it means. I know it's an Egyptian word, Greek word given to Africa. Or Al-Kebula. I am from Al-Kebula. I don't use black or green or purple per se. I would say that and I would tell you what I mean by the word black. Because if we are black people, look around the room. Which one of us you going to say isn't black? When you look at us long ago, we were all looking one hue because we were all there by ourselves. But when the European came and the Arabs came, we changed our color. So I never speak of us. I speak of us black, just as a word. But if you immediately ask me what I mean, I quickly correct it, so that you know I am not stuck in the classification. That's why I never could join a black studies department. Black studies. Take an Indian from India. I'm not talking about the people in the Caribbean. They're not Indians. They're Caribbean and no Caribs. They just take on a name. They're African. But you take an Indian who came mostly from northern part of India, the Caucasus Mountains, mixed with the indigenous people that came with Tutmosis III. You call them Dravidians. But they, the people are called Dalits. Dalits. They have to clean stool, put a hand, literally put their hand and clean the stool and eat with their hands. Because they can't, if the shadow hit
It touches.
one Indian, there are 47 levels in the Hindu religion, 47 grades of people, and the Dalits aren't any. Those people, in the way they have to live, the Indian government turned their face and ignored it. That's why I said I listen to the news, and my solution to problems are different to many. I don't care if all Indians kill themselves, if all Pakistani kill themselves. It don't matter to me. It don't matter if
Saddam Hussein?
the one in the place,
All right.
Iraq.
Saddam
If
Hussein.
he should fall dead in the morning, and Bush should fall dead in the morning,
That's right.
both of them are no good bums.
That's right.
Look what they did to me and my ancestors. You don't have to think the same way, but I think so. I have a right to rebel. I can't say they treat me good unless going to a college and getting a string of old paper and degrees. The only damn thing, I don't use it unless I got to. But those things fool a lot of people. Take, for instance, a fellow went to Harvard. He got his PhD, a lawyer. And he wrote a book, nigger.
Yeah.
And is justifying the word nigger. Just, to me, that's ignorance. But maybe I'm not.
Dr. Ben,
Yeah,
I have a question. When you said that the Egyptians could marry their sister if they weren't from the same mother,
yeah.
I was wondering, did that apply to the regular people or just to royalty?
Anybody.
Because I heard just recently a friend of mine from the Sudan said that in the Sudan, if the children aren't from the same mother, they're not considered like kin. So I was wondering if that
There may be a rule, that's a rule of Islam today, but it's not a rule that goes back
okay, I
in
was
time.
wondering if it has something to do with the ancient Egyptian customs. So they could marry their siblings while they weren't from the same mother.
Yes, because they have no such thing as half sister.
Oh, okay.
You can be a half a human being.
Right.
That's my half sister. That's my sister. Without the half sister.
If I could shed some light on that a bit further, I mean, it might have sounded disturbing when you first said it, but it's something that the Europeans got wrong in that there was a polygamous society in Africa in that men had different wives. So when you say you could marry your brother, but from a different mother, the Africans understood the genetic difference so that you wouldn't end up with any birth mutations. The Europeans had it wrong in that they intermarried. They did it for a reason. That was to keep the money in the family, basically. So they actually got it wrong, and they actually married their own brother from the same mother, and it messed up, you know.
I can't say the same
It
thing.
messed up.
I can't tell you right because one of the reasons my father sent me when I got to be 19 to Ethiopia from Puerto Rico. That's where I grew up in the Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, St. Croix. Between I used to go in the island. Was to meet my grandmothers. When I went there were a number of people to meet me. And I thought they were my grandmother's friends. Being they were all women, I know they were. So I came up and I said, "Good day, grandmother and friends." And they looked at me and wanted to know if I'd gone crazy. God said, we are your grandmother. I look in the mirror, but and I want to know how the 13 of them could be my grandmother. And I said, which one of you give birth to my father? They said, we all did. To make a long story short, I went back and told my father when I finished over there, Daddy, I met some ladies. And they said, they are my grandmother. He said, they are. I said, Daddy, which one gave birth to you? Out of, you come out of them. He said, they all. And my father died telling me all was his grandmother. He didn't know. He didn't know which one because they didn't tell him which one. They all were his father's wives.
Okay.
All give birth.
Dr. Ben? Dr. Ben? Hold check, Dr. Ben. I wanted to ask, can you elaborate some more on the birth of Asaru and Aset? I'm still trying to understand that a little more. And also I wanted to understand, like, why is the European Jew still trying to persist that they were slaves under Egypt and that they came up under, like, that's pretty much where their whole religion comes from, and how they were enslaved by Egyptians and everything. I want to understand it because I think that's where they really get their belief and their togetherness, because they feel that they were all oppressed during the times of Egypt. So I wanted you to get onto that.
I don't think that that should bother you. The easiest way is to form a religion is to have a group of people that you don't like. And you notice that the Bible said Moses did this, Aaron did this, something did this. But the pharaohs don't have a name.
No dynasty.
No name, no dynasty. Do you think that's accidental? Not one got a name. It's a myth, it's a story. A group of people talk to in hatred of another group. And you put it in a religion, you definitely gonna hate the group then. There is no record. We went from Alexandria in the north to Aswan, south, looking for a Jewish record, a Jewish stone, Jewish mosque, synagogue, and we haven't found one yet. You can't show me one thing. Is it possible that you could take up everything the Jews or Hebrews or what you call them did? No, it's a lie, the whole story. It's a lie, like all beginning stories of our religion are based upon lies. You don't have to have truth. Tomorrow morning, go to any bank in New York City. Show me one account marked God. They pick the money for God, but no account marked God. You know why? The minister steal it. I can't be more honest than that. The minister, if you don't pay money, you can't get buried. If you don't pay money, you can't get married. You mean to tell me God would let a few dollars stop him from... Oh, man.
And Asaru and Aset? The birth of Asaru and Aset?
Oh,
the birth?
The picture story speak of, they left no doubt because they show you Asaru with an erection, a solid penis, so solid they had to hold both hands. they walk want you to know what they're talking about. And it's there, there. And some books you can see it, and my books too. And they show on one side, in Abydos you have many, you have 7 holy of holies, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the last one is we have like this, and the tunnel turns there. You go to an area where they show the relations, Satai I and to Ramesses the prince. And right, you turn right again, you go upstairs and go outside and you go look and see alleged the tomb, the place that Asuru was born. I could only say hundreds of people have gone in those tombs and come out and never gone to the end of it. So there have never been a proof that Asuru was born there. But they get tired and they come out, or they get scared. I went in when, now it's got water. I went in when they didn't have water in it. I went a certain distance. It was enough for me. I didn't prove nothing, I didn't continue. But it's belief. See, belief doesn't make things a fact. And certain things are so imposing. You know, there are people who all the days set thick Billy Graham or Jerry Falwell. The nonsense they talk about at times, you got to believe. This, as I said, blind faith. Blind faith. And I'm not blind.
Oh, I have one more question. Is there any more, is there any proof to the existence of, or past existence of Jesus or Muhammad?
No. Jesus and Muhammad is the same thing. That if you believe that Muhammad spoke with God, no, he couldn't read. If his name was 10 foot high, he couldn't read it. From the day he was born until he died. He's one of the poorest people. He was a camel, his father and him were camel drivers. And they're making up to live. But Muhammad fell in love with Khadijah, the widow of a wealthy man. Well, thus he became wealthy. Abu Bakr was one of his great companions, and Omar the Great. With the three of them, they took on the teachings of a religious group that preceded them. That religious group had 3 outstanding women goddesses. Alweza, Alat, A-L-L-A-T, and I forget that other. But 3 women of the previous religion that was in the area, which they drove out, had 3 goddesses as the deity. He took on one, Alat, and made Allah. Changed the T to an H. What men have always, for quite a long time, not always, but quite a long time, been against women, for one. You can't always fight a man if you're going to allow yourself to get pregnant. In your pregnancy, there's a point that you can't beat him. Even if you could have beaten him, you can't beat him when you're 9 months, for instance, and it can knock you down in a minute. Men have always cowardly take advantage of a woman down through history. But through history, there have been women that saved men. The Ashantis was saved by Asante what? The Lamabana was saved by women. I could name you a number of situations. In Southern Africa, the men were saved by women. So we have not learned to keep our bias, our ignorance, away from our good reason. So the condition that make us hate you isn't reason, it's just bias. But we still go on. This society was built. I mean, take for instance, all the laws that women have fought in America was made by men. And the same men changed the laws when things changed. The witches in Boston, all kinds of different things. These were laws believed by men. Till now we got the opposite. We got women with women and men with men.
What was the significance of Muhammad not being able to read?
Oh, he couldn't read. How could God give him the Torah?
Oh, I have one more question. Is there any proof to the existence of, or past existence of Jesus or Muhammad?
No. Jesus and Muhammad is the same thing. That if you believe that Muhammad spoke with God, no, he couldn't read. If his name was 10 foot high, he couldn't read it. From the day he was born until he died. He one of the poorest people. He was a camel, his father and him were camel drivers. And they're making up to live. But Muhammad fell in love with Khadijah, the widow of a wealthy man. Well, thus he became wealthy. Abu Bakr was one of his great companions, and Omar the Great. With the three of them, they took on the teachings of a religious group that preceded them. That religious group had three outstanding women goddesses. Aloesa, Alat, A-L-L-A-T, and but three women of the previous religion that was in the area, which they drove out had three goddesses as the deity. He took on one, a lot, and made a lot. Changed the T to an H. What men have always, for quite a long time, not always, but quite a long time, been against women, for one. You can't always fight a man if you're going to allow yourself to get pregnant. In your pregnancy, there's a point that you can't beat him. Even if you could have beat him, you can't beat him when you're 9 months, for instance, and you can knock you down in a minute.
You're vulnerable.
Men have always cowardly take advantage of a woman down through history. But through history, there have been women that saved men. The Ashanti was saved by Asante what? The Lamabala was saved by women. I could name you a number of situations. In Southern Africa, the men were saved by women. So we have not learned to keep our bias, our ignorance, away from our good reason. So the condition that make us hate you isn't reason, and it's bias. But we still go on. This society was built. I mean, take for instance, all the laws that women have fought in America was made by men. And the same men changed the laws when things changed. The witches in Boston, all kinds of different things. These were laws believed by men. Till now we got the opposite. We got women with women and men with men.
What was the significance of Muhammad not being able to read?
Oh, he couldn't read. How could God give him the Torah? No, God wrote the Torah. I mean Quran. And call Muhammad and tell him to teach the people. What could he read? He can't read. He can't write. What could he teach him? When he read, how could he read it? No, you believe. If you're a Muslim, you believe it. A miracle.
And the same thing with Jesus? With
Jesus, the same thing.
The 12 apostles, all that is patently false.
James the Lesser. What's it called?
Right here. Right here.
You got an Egyptian book. You got one of my books? The
Black man now?
huh?
Black man now?
Yeah,
Yeah, I got it.
bring it.
I gotta go.
Bring the book.
Write it down.
Mr. Spence, maybe while we're waiting, maybe you want to elaborate on the curse of Ham and how the Jews put that, added to this curse. They said about us, the thick lips and.
Yeah, they put their creed.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about that.
What, you know, it was, the Jews were in different parts of Europe, and they made their stories around 625. The Europeans believed had already developed a system, and they followed the Europeans by creating hideous images about the people called black. Richard Moore wrote a book called The Word Negro and Its Evil Use. And he in this book he show you that the Spaniards used the word Africa and Africano, and Africana, Trigueña and Trigueño. And that was enough for them until the English added to it. So that one European power, the people add to the next European, so that you have Denmark in the islands, the people in the Virgin Islands, especially 50 or older, consider Denmark, the people of Denmark, their friends. And they were the slaves. What happened? Some they had children with some women, and you could see the result of that. Those children were made the masters and to run the thing. The man, he had died, and they didn't bring a wife. So he gave it to the light-skinned girl. That the dark-skinned woman produced a light-skinned child, and the Dane man gave everything to the light-skinned child. Therefore, they became the Bokra. The Bakra, you not have heard that word. Yeah. A Bakra is a person that we call Hayela.
So they are Bakra?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you saying a Bakra man?
Bokra man.
Bakra man.
Or a Bokra woman is a light-skinned person. You can find in here, yeah, all of the different schisms, where they come from. For instance, in Genesis, you got Ham and his son speaking, the ancestor of the Negroes. Now I cannot forget the fourth son, whose children I would have ordered to serve you and your brothers. Therefore it must be Canaan, your firstborn, whom they may enslave. And since you have disabled me doing ugly things in the blackness of night, Canaan's children shall be born ugly and black. Moreover, because you twisted your head around to see my nakedness, your grandchildren here shall be twisted into kinks, and their eyes red. Again, because your lips jested at my misfortune, they shall swallow. And because you neglected my nakedness, they shall go naked. And their male members shall be shamefully elongated. Their forefather Cain commanded them to love theft and fornication, to be banded together in hatred of their masters and never to tell the truth. Well, how could you like anybody who wrote that?
Right.
Because I want you. Here is the half-cut thing here by Council Farming. At the same time, I am going to read this, and this is by a European, intellectual European. He said, "There a people, now forgotten, discovered while others were yet barbarians. The elements of arts and sciences, a race of men now rejected for their sable skin and frizzled hair, founded on the study of the laws of nature, those civil and religious systems which still governs the universe." Council Valley, Ruins of Empire, 1789. So, you see, in fact, you have to point out the very few who are willing to tell the truth. He said, anywhere you go, you can't find people like these. Egyptian, is speaking. They founded themselves when all was Akbar. Here we speaking, and Commissaire Bali is highly respected. But people say what they want.
Dr. Ben,
Yes, sir.
another question I have. From your point of view, when was it that you feel that the Europeans got, well, let me just retract that. My understanding is that the Europeans, the first ones to get involved in Africa were the Greeks, then the Romans, then obviously the Persians, which would be the Ottomans.
These are not Europeans.
Well,
Persians Asian.
I'm sorry?
The Persians Asian.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is the European coming out of Europe, when was it that he first,
322, when
and where did he come from?
when Alexander invaded Egypt was in 322 of the before the Christian era.
Now, where did those Greek, we call
They
Greek,
from Greece.
right, but originally from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, they were originally a part of the Eurocentric people, am I correct, Europeans?
Alexander from Greece.
Right. Now, and then the following people who got involved were the Romans, then you get the Ottomans, which would be the Turks, perhaps the Hittites, etc.
The Turks were not there yet.
No, but I'm saying in stages. So,
The Turks didn't reach, it wasn't existent then.
no, I do agree with you, but I'm saying actually they came in stages. The Greeks, the Romans, etc., etc., etc. Who were these sect of people that you call the Hyksos or Hyksos? Who were they, and where did they come from, and what were they?
The group of Asians,
But
a black skinned people, you can see them at a museum. You see samples of them with kinky hair
where did they?
and black.
Which part of Asia, geographically, where would you say they came from?
Where you could call it about Arabia, where Arabia is today.
But would the Arabians also be called the Ishmaelites or Sabians?
You could call them anything you want. I can't decide what they're being
No,
called.
but from your expertise, I was trying to determine, because from my understanding, I was looking at when the Greeks first came in contact with Africa, the area they came in contact with, as you said, it was to Egypt.
With 332 BC.
Right, and they did not come in contact, the area that they came in contact with would be Nubia, Palestine, Arabia, Egypt.
No, you're mixing everything, and it didn't work like that.
No, not all at once, but eventually, as they became the dominant power, the dominant sect, they moved about in that particular area.
But you can't do it like that. You put me at a disadvantage, because if it's different area, I got to say what they did and where they went.
Mm-hmm.
And many times they joined with Africans against Africans. You know, we have that.
Yes, sure.
Dr. Ben, I want to know, I feel like, I'm sure you have good intentions for giving your books to the Nation of Islam, right? But the Nation of Islam, from my knowledge, they teach their people through rank and file, right? How about the rest of us that don't want to be part of the Nation of Islam, that want to read your books? We're not going to have access to those books. And another thing is, too...
Wait, you sit there and go to misquote him. Remember I said, there's a stipulation that black people of any religion, any mean, anything, any economic system, any political system must have access to those works. I specify all black people must have access. You don't have to be a Muslim to use these books. When the library is open at 8 o'clock in the morning, you could walk right in and use them. I still have the books because the lawyers haven't come to sign the papers yet. And I don't come for the books. And I told them they have to bring the lawyers and notify me so I could have my son and my granddaughters come to represent me. They must sign that before they get the books.
Happy New Year.
You got it now, what's that?
No doubt.
Hope they're gonna be honest about it.
Yeah.
They will be. We have it on tape.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about it.
That's right.
The Jet magazine, the This magazine, the New, it's all over.
It's gonna be in Chicago or here in New York.
They got to come here to get the book.
No, that's not what he's saying. What he's saying, will the library be here in New York?
He got a library, it's in Chicago.
Chicago.
Well, I mean,
Go to distance.
Dr. Ben, I have a question.
yes, sir.
With us being Nubian African people here in North America at this 2003, with the onset of maybe a war coming on, you know, what direction or what advice would you give us to carry on, you know, in these times coming up?
I don't have any advice. You have to go on yourself. I give you information. It's up to you to do what you want with it.
Well, how do you see that information being used?
I can't tell you how to think. I could give you information, and you use them how you want. I know what I would do. You understand?
Okay, what would you do then? I'm just trying to...
If I tell you what I would do.
I just want to make sure it gets done.
I'm not crazy. I tell you things that happen, and you decide how you're going to act or react. I know how I'm going to act or react based upon what I've done already.
Yeah.
You see, I don't have a heap of money. I could have oodles and oodles of money. But I instead adopted children. I got 14 adopted children who got my name legally. I send them to college, not only to school. All of them I sent to college. Some are women, some are men. And today, they are making a handsome living. I wanted to do that. I could have bought cars. I could have bought big homes. I could have bought whatever. But I felt I was very rich. And I feel very honored.
Well, my question wasn't exactly me personally, but I'm saying we as a people, you know, what direction would you see?
I give you the information what exists. If you can't tell from your own self what you want to do based upon the information you get from me, different people, then you make up your mind. You are old enough to make up your mind. If the information I give you is sufficient to do something, you do it. If it's not sufficient, you don't do it.
Yeah, but I don't think you really understand what I'm saying. I'm saying, okay, maybe I've been fortunate enough to have insight into to reading a lot of your books. But I'm saying we as a people, you got groups of people that maybe never came across your book. Some people maybe in the street. I'm talking about we as a group of African people here in North America, you know? I'm not talking about individually as me or a group, a small group. I'm talking about us as a body of people. In what direction would you like to see us moving? Do you think we're moving in the proper direction? Do you think we're going astray, or, you know?
A black man we the black Jews came out in Puerto Rico in 1935. The next book came out in 1967 in New York. We the Black Jews Again, Volume 2. In 67 came Black Man of the Nile, then Black Man of the Nile and his family, and so on and so on. 42 different books, and one more last week, Volume 2 of Black Man of the Nile. You got, if black people don't know my book,
All of us are here because of you, Dr. Ben. What you
if
put out to us.
they don't know my book, it is not my fault. I used to publish the book myself at 120
Yeah.
6th Street and upstairs.
Seventh Avenue.
Yeah, but
upstairs.
it's no,
What is it, a pool?
you know, it used to be Motor Vehicle Bureau.
Right.
And they
Right.
got the Masonic Lodge
The
there.
Masonic Lodge, yeah.
Right next. I was up there for 20 years. 12 o'clock in the night, 1 o'clock in the night, alone sometimes, Simmons and I, and getting the books out. I gotta get up and get some sleep to go to teach at college the next day. Come back and lecture on the corner with Polk Chuck Davis and Arthur Reed and all of us. What do I do for the people not knowing my book? I tried. Anybody could say I tried. For 20 years, I was upstairs there. And you know why I stopped? The man raised the rent $300 a month. And I couldn't afford it. I didn't make enough money because then I used to sell, Simmons and I would sell a book here, a book there, a book. You can't blame the writer or the publisher. He tried. I tried. I used my own money. And I had a wife. She took care of her own money. I had to feed her. If I didn't feed her, she would be hit out.
Dr. Ben, Wesley Snipes did a documentary on Dr. Clark's life.
Yes.
He was doing one with you.
Yes.
When is that supposed to be released? I've been waiting so long.
It is finished. I mean, it's completed.
Complete.
In the work, general work, but his cameraman, I forget his name right now, his cameraman said that Wesley Snipes broke up with the lady, his first lady, who used to be in charge of the project. And he has some contractual obligations to fulfill with that woman. And so his cameraman, I can't remember.
Say it doesn't matter.
Said because of these complications that Wesley had with the woman is the reason they can't go no further.
So that's the right now.
So it's
It's all
suspended.
that.
Yeah, for the time being.
It's in limbo. So it's in limbo pretty
They
much.
owe me money and I can't get paid.
Yeah.
Dr. Bennett. You and Dr. Clark had a unique relationship. And although on certain lectures that I've attended, you didn't agree with everything he believed in and vice versa. How did that relationship evolve like that? Because I had a good friend and he died, and I think about him a lot. So I know that you think about Dr. Clark a lot. So how did you, you got the point.
I thought about Dr. Clark, that I took his death affect me to the point that I spent 16 months on the second floor in diapers. I couldn't come downstairs. I didn't know who was my wife, didn't know who was my mother, didn't know who was my children, didn't know who am I for 16 months. I spoke in the Presbyterian Church, where we are now. That's where we had the body first. I spoke in there one day over John Clark's body and got a stroke and couldn't do no more and came back the next day and then spoke over the body in Adam Clayton's church. And I got a stroke there. That stroke was I have had 4 strokes before then, but this was the first time I had a stroke where I couldn't speak. It kept me in bed, I said, for 16 months. I don't know, the 16 months of my life, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. That's why I said, sometimes my wife and I may have heated argument, that's all I get. But I could never think of hitting Gertrude because for 16 months, she was my eye and my ears. She saw for me, think for me. I don't remember. I used to pay the terrace once a month for the rent and go pay this bill and that bill. For 16 months, somebody paid something. And Gertrude said to me, here, here's the bill, I paid this and I did this, here's the back. I said, look, you paid them all the time when I was incapacitated. Go on. Why give me? I said, so she still paid the bill. She going away tomorrow to the Virgin Islands. And she left me a set of checks. She said, I want you to do this. You better do that. I said, yes, Mom. Yes, Mom. Because she's the one that paid those bills. No, she's in charge of that. That's her duty. Why take it back from her? Why? Because I'm a man? I would do nothing. You see, that's what I said. If I am a man, and I know my wife did that, I would be foolish now to come and take it back from her, just on the basis I'm a man. That's what I'm talking about. If we, I learned to respect. I had respected women for a long time because my mother, and I saw my mother and father operate. But if I had any doubt before, I don't have any doubt now. I mean, I don't. What other proof can a woman show me? She's just like me. In intelligence, she took care of the bills and everything.
Dr. Ben,
Yes, sir.
question I'd like to ask. With all that's going on in Africa right now today, with so many oppressions, so many things that are actually affecting it and keeping Africa down, what do you feel what do you feel that would be needed to cause Africa to resurrect itself again?
To get rid of religion, to get rid of intellectual leadership in certain areas. I feel we have had people from all kinds of universities with all kinds of degrees, and they fail miserably. We need to get intelligent people from the community, just intelligent. I don't say college, because we have had nothing but PhDs and whatnot have failed. What we need is people who like themselves and willing to help themselves and will build decent societies. They don't have to have degrees. But nothing wrong with degree, but they don't have to. So we need to see in the mirror. When I look in the mirror, what comes back to me is black. Light black, dark black, any kind of black. Because I know my people have been messed up. If I show you a picture of my mother, and you see me here talking about black, you know that my mother is jet black, right? That's what you know. That ain't what I know. My mother is a woman that you got to look twice. Twice, maybe 3 times, to find what's black about her. She's born down in Puerto Rico. And I love her because she always said, I am a black woman. And proudly said she was a black woman. But if I saw you, this woman, and remember that she claimed all her grandchildren and everything, she's a black woman. You send the wrong class.
Yep.
Whoa, not bad at all.
What I'm just trying to say. I got a thing when I go to speak in the United States. I said, good morning, brothers and sisters. And everybody's looking at me. Even Georgia, Mississippi, everywhere. The same thing I said. I could prove it, I said. You are my brother and my sister. You're going to think that you're from Virginia, you're from Carolina, you're from Barbados, you're from Trinidad, you're from anywhere, and you're not my brother. In 1620, the year 1620, a ship left Barbados. It was on its way to England, and it was carrying Africans on a holiday. You know, a storm drove up off of Cuba, Cape Hatteras. The storm blew the ship in to Newport, Virginia. Became the first black people on the shores of the United States of America. You are a result of this storm. Regardless of how light, how dark, you are my brother and my sister. And if we know that, how could we talk about Ireland and what state and
That's right.
I don't talk about that because I know we are related somehow or the other. I talk about it only to show the commonality between us. We were 120 years in the Caribbean before we came to here. The first one of us come on this continent up here in 1620 in Jamestown, Virginia. Not before. So that, remember, that is our source. Then we came before the 15th century from Mother Africa, or Alkebulan, or what. It was a fact. We can't change them. And that's why I could accept my mother. Another reason, because I realized the white man got to her family. My grandmother was like him. Her mother was a splendid. Her mother asked her, when she bring me to present me to my grandmother, her mother said to her, you spent 7 years in England, in Spain and Ethiopia. And this all you bring me is this ink? My mother asked her if all she brings was an imp. You know what's an imp? A black, ugly, mix up crazy thing, a thing. And I hated my grandmother until she died. was small, but somehow she never cuddled me.
Break it down.
Never. And she was white. And it remained in my mind. And when she passed away, and I asked my mother to explain to me what my grandmother knew, and my mother said, your grandmother had some funny ways. That's all. Some funny ways. And I could imagine all of us. We got cousins, we got sisters, brothers in the same position. Look, you love Adam Powell. All you love Adam Powell, right? But you shall know, like I knew Adam, and I respected him very much. He used to come and lecture in the corner with us. And we go up there when we want and been with Adam and so forth. But Senior Powell, you don't run in and out the church. No. Senior Powell might have been black, but he didn't show it. You see, we are in such a confused net at times. If we pay attention to that strictly, we're going to be in trouble. Because I got a situation now. A man, Mother Kepa know about this man, the tall brother and his wife. The lady wouldn't speak to me for years. She got a grandchild. She got a son. I taught him in school at Harlem Prep. She got a grandchild as a result. She don't speak to the child's mother, her son, because the child is light-skinned. I can't, because whatever is going to happen to us, I can't say to you, you light skin, you're not dark as him, or you're too dark, and we're not going to join, and the blows come down on my head at the same time. We all are one. And none of us here could tell how light we're going to be or how dark, because we didn't decide what our father, and we didn't decide our mother. We just find ourselves here. I would have preferred my mother being black and shiny. But she isn't, and I can't change it. I can't say, I'm going back, because I can't get in.
Got to change the shape.
That's the fun, but if you go into Africa, you can go into the smallest, furthest village, deep off into the bush, and you'll find World Vision there.
Yes.
You'll find Save the Children, building a church, bringing electricity and water, and,
They got money, they're making up of it.
yes. And then, and if you don't find that, then you'll find a mosque.
You find the Mormons. You find the mosque.
Yes.
West Africa.
It pays money, that's why they're there.
Yeah, but the religion is the overriding factor in all of our lives. No matter where we go, we're going again in the deepest today. Yes.
What happens today is not going to happen tomorrow.
Africa is cleansing itself.
Africa has been up on the high point.
Oh, okay.
Now she's down on the low point. With people thinking as us, she was going to come back on the high point. That's the reality of things, up and down. Maybe the world isn't going to be here. The planet bumping into something, or something else bumping the planet. The things I say is not to change a thing overnight, because I can't change everything. I could be wrong in some things. I'm trying to find something that we all can agree on and cooperate towards the end of the thing. And there must be some things that I have said, if not tonight, somehow in my book, that we can all agree on and work towards it. So everybody in here got something I could agree with. And everybody got something I don't agree with. That don't mean we don't talk because I don't agree with something you said. Last night in where was the Canada? A brother got up in the midst of my talk, a restaurant, and he said, I don't give a goddamn. And I stood there listening to him, and he started, and then he come to me and he's shaking his hand, and I watch him like this. And so I was waiting, I said, now. When he stopped, I said, you have your peace. And you said that Selassie is God. And you said that Jesus is God. They got to argue. I said, what do you mean? I said, do you know Selassie? I don't have one ounce of information that he could adapt. It's just a talk. I was willing to discuss with the man if he knew the subject. Just believe. Anybody else? Let me quickly.
Dr. Ben, all right, most of us that came over here in the Western Hemisphere during the slave trade, right? Most of us originated from the west coast of Africa, right?
No.
No?
No.
Really? Well, how far is,
For instance, I don't ask you. You know the funds of Dahomey? You know where Dahomey is? No. In West Africa.
You need to.
The funds where Tanzania is now, where the funds come from, back and away from the Arabs. That's one group. There are many African groups from the West Coast. You've got the Yoruba religion, the god Shango. It's from Egypt. Look at the religion and the songs and everything they say. Then read the Egyptian script and see, same thing.
Right.
That's what the European would like us to believe. Right. That we are, all of us came from West Africa. Then what happened to the people that enslaved in Asia, where they came from? The Africans that enslaved in Europe, where they come from? You ever ask yourself?
Right.
That's why I insist we are Africans, period.
Dr. Ben,
So yes.
yeah, I remember being in your house once, and Dr. Lewis and what's his name? Anyway, I can't think of his name. The heavyset guy.
Oh yeah.
Right. And you went up and got one of the books on the slave trade, where the Arab himself was talking about the slave trade and how the map that you, I don't know how you got this map from the map seemed like it was so old that if you messed with it, you said turn it, and I was like scared to turn it because it was that fragile, like looking and stuff like that. But on that map, it had where the Arabs said that it was, they themselves drew it, or with the slave trade.
Slave.
Yeah. And you can see they were bringing Africans around.
Oh yeah. They sold.
To the way, yeah.
They sold Africans. You see, people don't understand. The Europeans were in slavery after the Arabs sold slaves to Europeans. The Arabs sold slaves, sold captured Africans to Europeans. The Arab introduced the Europeans into slavery.
The question being now, Dr. Ben, these particular Arabs that sold the black Africans to the Europeans.
Wait, now, what other kind of African?
Well, my question, because if I go back, the original, and correct me if I'm wrong, the original people who lived in Arabia from the beginning of antiquity, they were really black.
No.
They weren't?
The Arabs came out of the Caucasus Mountains and come down and dealt with a black group of people.
Okay, well, that's the point I was trying to get to, because that's the point.
People that were originally there were black until the.
That's right. So now, are we talking at that time, when those people who came from the Caucasus Mountains, the Danube River, the Rhine River, that area, are we talking about the time when they infused with the blacks and became more lighter and lighter, those particular sect of Arabs who sold those blacks, or are you talking about the original blacks who sold them?
I don't know what you mean by original.
Well, I'm talking about, when I say original, I mean the indigenous people, the indigenous inhabitants who lived there. Because when you say those who came from the Caucasus Mountains, again, that was Europeans.
I'm going to answer your question by giving you an example. Most of us believe in Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, right? Right? Not me. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi worked for the British government as a lawyer, right? In South Africa, he refused to ride in a car with South Africans because they were black. He wasn't nowhere white. He went back to India and refused to deal with the Dalit. Would you still want me to love Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi?
No, I see your point, and I agree with it. But I guess what I was trying to be able to differentiate is that when these particular Europeans infused with the people who originally came there, who were originally there first, obviously through invasion, conquering, submersion, subjugation, and then when they became more of a lighter and a dominant sect, at what period, I guess it also want to come back to what period was it, or what century was it, when these particular Arabs who sold the blacks, if you will, what century was that when they sold them into slavery to the Europeans? So it'll basically bring some kind of enlightenment.
In the 15th century. In 670, the Arabs came to Egypt.
Right. So with your
and North Africa. Those Arabs who came into Egypt conquering black people, sold them. Either they had to be sold or join Islam or die.
I understand your point, and I agree with that. But from your experience, from your knowledge, the depthness of your knowledge at this point, I'm sure you have a lot of history and research on this. These particular Arabs at that time in 670, you said, from all the gathering of your knowledge and your research right now, what was the actual color line of these people at that time? Was it those from the Caucasus Mountains?
They were mulattoes.
They were mulattoes. So they were a mixture of black and Caucasians at that point.
Which was what black? You know they were mulattoes, but which black you going to blame for them?
Well, because what I'm trying to say at that point, when the Caucasian came in and infused with them, they did subjugate the original people, the indigenous people. They subjugated them by force, made themselves the power force, the elect.
But the Europeans were doing the same thing at the same time.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is, like, for an example, like today, we would have, like, for an example, go back into Haiti with Papa Doc. At that time, you had the dark-skinned blacks and the light-skinned blacks. The dark-skinned were those who were looked upon as more inferior, suppressed, had to go through all the being neglected, rejected, and then the light-skinned were seen to be the ones who pretty much ate the fat of the lamb, if you will. So what I'm trying to find out, these particular,
You can't just say it like that, you know.
Well,
You had a lot.
hypothetically speaking.
You had a lot of light-skinned people who didn't eat the lamb.
Right, but his wife was light skinned. He elevated them to a
You
status.
got an easy way of saying it. For instance, in Haiti, you got 200, there was what? A mixed breed, light skin. But he didn't start the revolution. No. Neg yourself, a voodoo priest, and Macadal started the revolution. The revolution was by the light as more black, but the light too.
So-
at that time, you can't say just because there was
No, but see,
light.
well, my point is,
There were the children took on much, but all the children weren't rich.
I understand.
It had light-skinned children who were poor.
I understand your point, Dr. Ben, but I guess what I'm trying to really get down to the nook and cranny, what I'm trying to get down to is that prior to this capitulation of mixture, at that point, it seems like prior to these Europeans mixing in and fusing through conquering, was there any kind of caste system like it was in India? Was there any kind of caste system?
No.
That's just my point. So then it seems like more so when the Europeans kept coming in and kept coming in and kept coming in and kept enlightening, it seems at that point they started selling them off.
That's not true, because
Okay.
when the Greeks came in to Egypt, after defeating people in India, they was fighting in Asia, and then they turned and came in to Egypt to capture Egypt. They killed Egyptian, period. They didn't ask them no questions. They didn't save nobody. It's when they've been there a number of years and established themselves strongly. They wanted sex. The men wanted to go to bed. And they weren't going to bed with each other. They didn't bring no women.
Right, I understand.
So
No,
they come to the lot of children.
That's how they emerge.
So Dr. Ben, the Greeks were the first white people to come into Egypt.
The first one.
Yes, yes. What is it that
Dr. Ben. Dr. Ben, I want to know how far were the people from the west coast of Africa, like Ghana and all that, how far were they removed from Kemet?
Oh, they moved them 5,000 miles away.
I know, but I'm talking about time.
Going back to Ibn Battuta and Ibn Khaldun, they writing speak of the Ghanaians and other people like that. Not they want what they is now, but in 35 of the Christian era, Idrisian men spoke of brilliant men from the Gold Coast state who traded with the silver, with the gold with salt states in the north. And we have very good representation of the African living with each other.
I think that maybe I can help this brother. If you saw Henry Louis Gates' story when he traveled in Africa.
That's all right. Chapter 13, that's all
You
right.
saw the confusion there, that they could be, looked like Dr. Ben, and they were saying they were Arabs.
Yes.
And you say, but then when you saw the so-called Arab, he was a mulatto.
Yes.
And so they were the ones who were doing the enslavement. Okay,
The
but
mulattoes.
the people who were very African looking would still say, oh, I'm a Muslim, I'm an Arab.
Yes.
You see, and they was all confused. Okay?
Okay.
And so they were the mulattoes who were selling our folks. And the Coptic Church is very much involved in castrating the young boys. They call it shaving.
There's my point.
Okay.
Right, Arab isn't a race, Arab is someone that speaks Arabic.
Right.
It's not a race of people.
Right.
And my other question to you, Dr. Ben, and I'm going to back out. But my other question to you is that when when
The
they,
brother want to ask a question for the last.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
let him,
his turn.
You say you're from Puerto Rico, right? Did you know? I grew up in Puerto Rico. Right, okay, did you know, Pedro Albizu Campos? Pedro Albizu Campos, I was a member of Pedro Albizu Campos, movement in Fajardo. I lived at that time in Fajardo. My mother and father lived in Fajardo. I was a member of the Black Church at the school where the revolution started when we attempted to kill the governor. I was a young man. That happened in Humacao, the beach in Humacao, which runs in the beach in Asheva. I lived there at that time. My father was a member of Bristol Campo. But did he consider himself African too? I mean, I know he comes from a... He was black, but he spoke of Africanus and something like that, but that wasn't popular in Puerto Rico. Right, because I know when I speak to a lot of because he was black, he didn't gain no power. Yeah. Puerto Rico was as racist and is
so racist.
as any other
So
place.
racist.
That's why they vote for Goldberg.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, sir.
Yes, you were saying that like basically black people made albinos, and then I would guess they traveled into the Caucasus Mountains, and that's where we have white people from right now. I just wanted to elaborate on that some more.
No, black people make, but albino is just one of those phenomena
It's just
of nature.
phenomenon, just
And white people got albino, but what you call it, albino.
so how did they get into the Caucasus Mountains to like how did that order?
I think we need to get a map and lay it down or get a globe better and look at the globe and think that Genghis Khan came to Hungary, brought thousands of troops, and they didn't bring no woman. When you're talking about the white people in Europe, ask them, how did they took Genghis Khan and they're still white?
Yeah.
but Dr. Ben, how would you give any validity to the point of the Africans being the first migrants throughout the world?
What?
Africans being the first migrants throughout the world, leaving Africa, going into India all throughout Asia, and up into Europe. I was reading a particular book by Ivan Versantima and Renuka Rashadi, and they were reading that actually the Africans were the first ones throughout England, Ireland, Wales, Scotland, and that actually through the 3 ice ages of living in that particular area, that they actually mutated.
I don't know where they get that source from.
Well, he was saying scientists know that blacks, as you say, can.
He said that. Where did he get the source from?
Well, his source was saying right now scientifically, it's known throughout the scientific field that blacks can mutate, as you said, into albinos. And after going through 3 cold, frigid ice ages in Europe, that it was more beneficial for them to mutate to a whiter color in the whole.
I disagree.
That's what you're saying. Where did you get the proof?
Well, what he was trying to say, what he was trying to say in that particular book.
I want your proof. Where did you get your proof?
My brother.
Where did they come from, Dr. Ben? Dr. Ben, where did white people come from then?
I don't care.
Well, that's what Dr. Smalls was saying to the degree last week. Dr. Smalls was also to the degree last week.
One more.
3 more questions and we finish.
Okay. I've never visited Egypt, but I've studied it a little bit on and off. And I looked at the Cairo Museum, and I have a book on Cairo Museum's treasures. Could you elaborate what's in the basement? Because I've heard that there are pharaohs so well preserved that those are certain type of pharaohs
That's a lie.
that they don't put on.
That's a lie.
It is? Okay.
Joke. I've been all over the museum numerous times.
Right.
Probably each time I go there. There are pharaohs that museum speaks, present pharaohs of the, primarily of the last dynasties. There were 3 intermediate periods, and the last period is what they present. Akhenaten, Tetawan, not Tetawan is not a period of God, and so forth. Mostly from the 18th dynasty predominates. They don't, and they go a little into the intermediate period when before the Hyksos. The museum, the museum was set up by white people, set up by the British, and they used Greek and Roman style architecture to give it that look of a European thing. But the Arabs working there make more money from catering to the Europeans. The Europeans work with them. The Americans used to before this thing with Sudan. So you have to understand what you don't know. A dollar bill, is worth more than all the arguments here tonight where Egypt is concerned. It's an Arab government, and they look out for the interests of Arab people. If you look at the museum in Aswan, the Nubian Museum, it's Arabic. They show the Arab culture with the Africans being adapted to it. What else would they show? If it was a European culture, everything European would dominate. If it was an African culture, everything African would dominate. To the spoil, to the victim of colonialism. I am not saying that the African wouldn't be a colonialist. He was in Spain. That's Gibraltar.
That's right.
In 1711, he went into Spain. He was in Arabia, the Ethiopians. He was in Yemen, Ethiopian. The African is as much a colonizer as anybody else. I'm talking about things as they are now. I don't like colonialism. It isn't good to me. But I was a colonizer. When you think of things, ask yourself, why? Are you doing this thing because you have never done it? You've been into Greece before they were into you. Sesostris III built the city of Athens. The Greeks came to school for 22 years in Egypt, learning, adapting, and changing the gods to Egyptian gods. You must say all these things too. That's why I said I can't tell you how you must react. You got to hear or see an information and decide what you're going to do with it. That's why I can't make up your mind. You got to think it out.
Dr. Ben, the Arab guy that's the expert these days is Aviv Hawaz, I think his name is. That they always show on anything in Egypt, he's the expert.
Yeah, the case is.
Yeah, Aviv Hawaz.
He is the what's of Egypt. He is the man in charge.
Yeah.
No, he's not.
I forgot his name.
He's a PhD, and he's a PhD from Princeton. He's a PhD, just an Egyptian, he born in Egypt. But he got a PhD from Princeton. He see things as people in Princeton.
Yeah.
Dr. Ben, could you sort of settle things for me?
The last question.
Last question. I know that the Atlantic slave trade was a small part of our Holocaust and our story. Could you explain to me the mariner trade prior to 1490?
The what?
The mariner trade, where the Africans came over on the Atlantic side, made homes in North America, Central America, and South America.
That's a lie.
No?
That's a lie. Here is
Well, what was the similar?
niggardly love. Lie.
And then
That's what you want. You can't prove that. That's what you want things to be, not what they are. I don't want that.
Well, they say that some of the holidays.
They say. Who?
Well, archaeologists and.
Archaeologist is not a name of a person. Who?
All right, Ivan Van Sertima
Said what?
said that in his book they came before Columbus, right?
Yeah.
And he
He said
said
what?
that the Africans settled in North America and Mexico, the Olmec civilization,
Terracotta.
the Seminole
I
civilization.
want.
William Cass.
Wait, I want to ask you a question.
Brazil?
Everywhere that people build their civilization, it didn't exist until we get there. You're doing the same damn thing the European did. Nothing is working until a black man like you get there. What the hell are people doing nothing till you come? All those civilizations, you meet there and turn it into yourself.
What about the pyramids, Dr. Ben, in Central America and South?
What about it?
Well, they
They
said
weren't built for burial of nobody. They were built for activities different to that. Testing of queens, the jumping of queens, a whole different basis.
but they said that the architect was Imhotep. In Central
Oh,
America.
you don't read no place. That Imhotep was the architect. Oh man, you're crazy. I don't do that. Stop.
Well, Ramses or something came down.
This is
well,
not,
he was-
and you said Van Sertima wrote down that Imhotep was the architect there?
No, I didn't say that. Van Sertima, but they said that the plans for the Maya and the Incas,
Structure?
their structure,
They
their
didn't have no
pyramids,
sense.
step pyramids and
They
stuff
didn't have no sense.
was similar to that. on
They
the
didn't
step
have any sense. They had to wait till you come.
Oh, there's also statues that they've unearthed that showed them with thick lips and big noses and kinky hair.
You got,
The same
you
thing.
got people with thick lips in Europe.
I'm sorry?
Right.
You have people with thick lips in Ireland. You got people with
Kinky
thick
hair.
lips.
Yeah, they
You
are
got
descendants,
kinky
they
hair
are us
people
too.
in Europe.
Yeah, they are us too, that's what he's saying, that we went there. Yeah, we went to all those places, and that's how they
Why,
look like that.
why we went and they didn't come to us?
I'm sorry?
Why, how come
Oh, I see.
our things are not them? But theirs is ours. Why? You are being as that.
No, we do have.
You are being as racist as the Europeans by that contention. Everything comes from, nothing is there until a European comes. It's strange that everything that's worth something, the European build it. You're mad when he said that. And now you're saying the same thing. Nothing is there until we get there.
Well, how about this, Dr. Ben?
You know what I think y'all gonna have to do? Y'all have to disagree on this and cut this right here and have them come back to do it.
Peace. I just want to know, what was it that inspired you to seek the knowledge to the level where you at now?
My father and my mother
Yeah.
inspired me by sending me to school and keeping behind me.
Yeah.
That's how I done attribute.
But I'm saying digging the knowledge so deep because your knowledge and wisdom is so, it surpasses so many other people.
Well, I had parents who stood behind me and believed in me, so I was responsible.
All right, thanks a lot.
He's an intellectual.
Peace.
You had to do something with the